Okay, so in this video we're going to be learning a chord sequence. That's a pattern of chords over which you can improvise. And this is a really well-known pattern of chords. In actual fact, I'm going to do two and they're interchangeable. An extremely well-known pattern of chords called the 1-6-4-5 or the 1-6-2-5. Now what that means is that we're using chord 1, if you remember in the key of C, the chord C major is chord 1, and then we're going to chord 6, which is going to be A minor. When you write chords, when you describe them in numbers, you don't actually use normal numbers, we use Roman numerals, and that's just because there are so many numbers involved in music that it gets confusing. So it's great to use the Roman numeral system because then you can translate a chord sequence that you've learnt in one key over to another key really easily, because you just know you've got to start with a chord 1 and go to a chord 6, whatever. So this sequence underpins thousands of songs. You'll have heard a lot of songs using this particular chord sequence, and if you were to go on the internet and look up, you'd find lists and lists of them. Okay, so the 1-6-4-5, it basically means, here we are in the key of C again. We've got our chord 1, here's our chord 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4, and 5. But what we're going to do is, rather than leap around the piano, we're going to put them in a little pattern like this. So instead of going up to the chord 6, we're going to go down to a chord 6. It's still chord 6 even if it's below. It's the A minor in this key is always chord 6. And then we're going to go down to the 4 and up to the 5. For anyone who knows this, that's a chord 1-6-4-5 sequence. The other one, which is very similar and which we'll look at as well, you can use either of them for what we're doing, it doesn't matter, is the 1-6-2-5. So it's just a variation. So on this one, we've got chord 1, down to chord 6, and now we'll go up to chord 2 and down to chord 5. Just for fun, you can get to play these chords and then have a go at singing over the top of them. You'll probably find all sorts of melodies come out that you know, that you've known all your life. Like for example, Singing in the Rain goes over the top of this. Blue Moon goes over the top of this. It'll Be Lonely This Christmas Without You. Millions of songs. Okay, so make sure you've got the pattern and you're really comfortable with that. And you can use either of those, or you can mix and match them. It doesn't matter what you do for what we're going to do next. One thing I want to say though about triads, which is the miss a note position of the chord, is that we're using that to learn about the chords and to learn what notes are involved in the chord. You wouldn't really plonk around in those over much, especially lower down the piano, and they don't sound at all nice the lower you get. That's really ugly down there and super ugly down at the bottom there. Now that's all to do with the harmonic series and the fact that each note contains other notes. And what you're getting down there basically is a clashing of some of those notes that are contained. But we're going to look at the harmonic series in greater detail in another session. But basically, just to explain it very briefly, if I play that note, that one is also sounding an octave higher, and then a fifth higher, and then all of these, and this, and then all of these, and then all of these. So you can see how if we've got a collection of notes and we put them all the way down at the bottom of the piano, we're basically hearing something a bit like this. So if it came to playing that chord sequence and you really wanted a low bass line, the best thing to do would be to just use the bottom note, the root note of each chord. So instead of the whole chord, just the bottom note. And you can make nice little rhythmical patterns. But what we're going to do at the moment, I'm going to show you another way of making that chord sound a bit more pleasant. And we're going to do the chord sequence here on the C below middle C. But what we're going to do is take out the middle note and put it into the right hand. So just think that through. We're taking out the E from the chord. So now effectively we have the interval of a fifth in the left hand, and we've put the other note of the chord in the right hand. Now just to explore that, you could just run up the scale. All I was doing was taking out the middle note of every chord and putting that into the right hand. Makes a really pleasing sound. Even without that note in, the fifth in, that makes a really nice sound. But for the purposes of this sequence, we're going to take out the middle note and put it up here. So we take out the middle note of the A minor and put that there. I'm going to do the 2 chord. Down to the 4 chord. Now of course, what we now need, we've got a note that works really nicely and with the chord, or is part of the chord, and is forming a melody. Well, it's not much of a melody at the moment, but we're going to build on that. One of the things that you really need to remember when you're improvising is that we need repetition. Repetition is great, and it doesn't just have to be melodic repetition, it can be rhythmical repetition. And you'll especially find that in pop chord sequences and in blues and jazz, lots of rhythmical repetition. So. So I made a little mistake there, but it was a happy accident. Okay, so if you play around with that, making rhythms on the note, and don't fall into the trap of thinking that you have to fill every single moment when you're improvising. Rests and long notes are really valuable. So I'm putting rests in and having long notes, and that makes it interesting to the ear. If you just filled your sound it would get really, really boring after a while. So we have to have rhythmical interest. You also have to have melodic interest, but there's also repetition in the melody. As you'll notice, I was repeating melodies, starting on different notes. Okay, so what we're going to do now, if you just cast your mind back to the video when we explored the 3-note pattern, and we went up a scale, making a 3-note pattern, and then we did the opposite in the left hand. Well, now from this middle note of the chord, you can make 3-note patterns. You can go in any direction. You could go up or down, or up and down. Missing out notes. And moving up and down the piano, just, try different registers. The main thing about this is that you listen really clearly to what you're doing and make your decisions based on what you hear for you. You might like this sound. I personally don't, but you might like that. And if you like that, do it and listen to it and really enjoy listening to it, so that you're doing this for yourself and you're not doing it for anybody else at all. So play around with these patterns. Also play around with the bass line, dropping it down there. See what patterns you can fit in. And another thing, you might want to just do this with the chords, which is quite good fun. So you can just have lots of fun with the chords, not thinking about how it sounds for anybody else, just for you. And in the next video, I'll show you, we'll work with the same chord sequence, and I'll show you how to give it different flavours. We'll have a look at a jazzy flavour, and then something a bit more flowing, a bit more like Einaudi. Because what I'm trying to get you to do is improvise in as many different possible ways as we can, so you don't get stuck in one style, and especially don't want you to get stuck in plonking down triads, because that can get really tedious, and it's not the most economical way of using chords, if you want to put it that way.